Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to this special midweek episode of The Way of the Showman, where we view the world through the lens of showmanship, and today we have a personal bent. As it happens, the 12th of March, the birthday of the pandemic and the birthday of yours truly, happened to be on the Tuesday. So I am decided to release one extra episode this month for your listening pleasure. It's a particularly casual setting. I'm recording it outdoors, so you might hear birds, you might hear a dog that lives next door. It's actually two dogs living next door, and they get very excited if, for whatever reason, and they bark. So if you hear that, just imagine yourself into the scene. Where am I? What am I doing? Well, it was supposed to be a sort of secret and blow your mind, but as you might have already noticed in the title, it's already a clue. But I'm not going to speak it because I reveal it in a little bit. So without further ado, let's jump into this midweek's world of ideas.
It has become a little bit of a tradition here along the way of the showman for me to talk to you on the 12th of March. The 12th of March is which is sort of the day that I at least class in my first episode here, now almost 100 episodes ago. Can you believe that? That was when the day showbiz died. That was the pandemic. It started for real, at least in America, where I was at the time, in Las Vegas. And that day was also my birthday. It was, and this year it still is. Maybe it's because it's a leap year. That's maybe why I have ended up having the birthday on the same date this year. And couple of conversations. I was having a chat with the publisher at one point, and then later on with a guy that was going to help me produce some stuff, maybe for actually putting some shows in theaters of my own more long form work. And I mentioned that I have these three kind of shows or whatever, and one of the shows I talked a bit about those things that I talk about in the first episode of the day showbiz died and the pandemic and how that changed me as an artist and as a human being and whatever. And both of those people that I spoke to, a publisher and a producer, both expressed concerns or so about the interest people have in the pandemic. Is this something that people want to think about, or is it something that's important? This is just an annoying thing and it's not. But for me, it is really important. But that was enough that to having thought those things. It was enough for me to think, okay, well, maybe I should just forget about it and not do this birthday pandemic kind of thing. And I was all sort of set to do that, but then a couple of things happened that allowed me to think it was worthwhile doing it again. So maybe this is the last one, because it's kind of come full circle now. And the second thing is, one of the things, so like the second thing, which I will say first, which makes it the first, but it is actually the second, is that we are doing this long form project now, where I have written out basically lectures or so, like trying to get my head around the relationship between showmanship and play. And I really hope that you're enjoying that and doing a really deep dive, because when we do these deep dives, it can actually change us a little bit. And I know I've had that in my mind when I listened to John Vervaeke's Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, that I have this, which you can find online, that I have this feeling like, okay, or a book that I read. It's like I read a book and then I go, this has actually expanded who I was as a person. The Lost Knowledge of the Imagination by Gary Lachman was another thing that came at important point just also during the pandemic. And those of you who are long-time listeners might remember me talk about some of these things before. But Anyway, I hope that the showmanship and that and showmanship and play can do that for you. I'm sitting outside here, so there's birds and stuff, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, but that was supposed to be the idea here today. So that's one aspect of it, that I'm doing this one season, and as I have done that, I have decided to not talk very much about personal things. So I normally do these podcasts, as the long-term listener will know, such as yourself maybe, that I normally talk a little bit sort of colloquially and just about what's happening in the beginning of the episode before I get into whatever the topic is of that episode. But this time we aren't doing that, so this is also a little catch-up with that. And just going back again, pandemic. Why is that important to me? Well, one of the main things that is important for me and for you is that is the time when showbiz died, when I stopped doing shows. I went from doing 10 shows a week in Opium at Spiegelworld's production at the Cosmopolitan, which at New Year's, just one past, New Year's Eve 23-24, that did their last show. So that's the end of that era of 6 years or something of that show happening, of that where I was part of it for 2 years or so, and that's come to an end. And that wasn't sort of fully related to the pandemic, but the pandemic came in the midst of that, and I had to decide what to do with my time, because time was given to me by the pandemic. I had to be with my family, and we had to wash our vegetables with soap and all that, so there was a little bit of extra work. But the thing that I did was to finally get my shit together to make this podcast. So I don't know if it would have happened without it. It would just been one of those things that could happen, but that hadn't happened. So this is the pandemic is the reason why I'm talking to you. And because I'm talking to you now, I need, like the manifesto says, a showman needs to have something to show. We need to have something to show when we get the attention. And now that I have your attention, I need to have something to say, which is also why I find these rambling things, sometimes I don't want to do it, because I feel like I need to give you something that I've worked through. Maybe that's the ethos of a showman who cares about their craft, is that I don't want to just take your time. I want to have something specific to tell you. So that's why I'm doing this now. So I feel uncomfortable sometimes when I'm just going to talk about myself. But it has been pointed out by one of my listeners, and that I had the pleasure of talking to, Lucian. He pointed out really excellently that in a lot of the stuff that I do, I draw on the ideas of others and not so much on my own ideas, and just asking that question, why is that? Anyway, it put a little fire in me and made me reevaluate how I express some ideas, because I am currently working on some writing. Because what was the other thing that happened during the pandemic for me? Well, we left and went to Norway, which ended up being a wonderful thing for the family, and it ended this doing 10 shows a week with Spiegelworld in Las Vegas. So we left Las Vegas in a hurry, as economic refugees. Couldn't make it work over here. And but what was the other thing that happened? It was that while I was here, I started to write what became the second season of this show, from episode 23 or 4 and onwards, for sort of 40 episodes or so. And that really was where I went, like, well, we talk about the way of the shaman, and I talk about issues of being on the way of the shaman, but then I tried to narrow down what is it actually, and I structured and organized my thoughts, and that really changed me from being somebody who had a lot of ideas to actually being able to string them together, to be able to talk for as long as I do about these ideas. And so the pandemic then, totally changed me with that as well. One of the great things was that we ended up coming back to the old country, where my daughter just really, she's thriving there. So am I, and so is my wife. We're all going into another level of reality, which when I was living here, I did not see it as a possibility. Living in Norway, being with my family, my parents, who's not getting any younger, getting to spend quality time with them when it's needed and when it's beneficial for me as well. Or like not when it's beneficial, but that it is beneficial, because if I don't do it now, then you will actually miss out on it. So, but I didn't think it was going to be possible. But the pandemic came and it opened up a gateway into an adjacent possible. As there's a Stuart Kaufman maybe that talks about this adjacent possible, that reality, as I've talked about so many times, and I talked about just recently now on the last episode where we talk about the lens of showmanship, of looking through it, and that the world is always more. There's like shit's going on everywhere all the time. What is it? Everywhere all the time, and everyone is doing everything, like it's like processes. Everything is just, and you got to choose your way to look at it, to understand what's going on and to make any sense of it or whatever. And you change your way of looking at the world, something changes, like the pandemic came on, and all of a sudden something that I didn't think was possible became possible. So that's just a food for thought. Can you introduce something into your life that functions like the pandemic? Asking you the question, what do I really want? What would I do if it wasn't just for the money to pay the bills? Or what is important in my life? What would I like to have done before my body falls apart on me so that I can't do X, Y, and Z? Like, is there some things now that I will look back at and go, oh, I wish I would have done that? So the pandemic allowed me to do that, and it afforded me the ability to talk to you right now. So that's kind of an exciting thought to go. It's affording me something big, even though it was, and something positive for my life. So I went to Norway and thought that was the new thing now. But then why is the pandemic important? But it's also like the third thing of why would I actually want to tell you about this, to ramble on my birthday about the year and life and the pandemic, because it just so happens that my birthday and the pandemic's birthday, if you can call it that, happens on the same day. And part of that reason, and why I said it's gone full circle, is that I am currently sitting back in Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm here doing another contract, but as I mentioned, the show that I was with and the company that I have been, the only company that is, it's like, I don't know how many times since the first time in New York when we did the first absinthe season at Fulton Fish Markets in New York City in 2006. It's been with Spiegelworld that I have come to America. This time I'm here with Cirque du Soleil. I'm performing in Cirque du Soleil's show Mad Apple at the New York casino. And that is, for one, it's totally awesome. It's really great to be back, seeing friends and everything. But also to be in Cirque. I don't know for sure, but with the size of Cirque is very likely, if not, I believe it is, the largest circus company ever to have existed. Greatest show on earth was a big thing, but it didn't have shows all over the world like Cirque does. So, and in my mind, when I first saw Cirque du Soleil, and me and Mats Buer, my partner that I was hanging out with back in 1996 or something, 10 years before the going to America and all that, we did street shows in Europe and heard that Cirque du Soleil's Saltimbanco show had set up somewhere in Belgium. I can't remember the town anymore, but we found out. How did we find out? Maybe we read it in the Cascade Juggling magazine. I don't remember how we found out that it was there, because that was, as far as I was concerned, it was before the internet. Like, the internet did exist, and I guess I had been on there looking up some history of juggling stuff, but I didn't have an email until 1999, so it was years before I actually had an email. But we drove to Belgium to see the show, and, blown away. It was amazing, and I remember seeing those first shows on video and stuff and going, this is unbelievable. But their style, with the lycra, with the powerful makeup and all that. I mean, Cirque du Soleil, it's like the characters there in those in Alegria and Saltimbanco, and they are. It's like the kiss makeup of circus. It's these fully painted faces and everything, and they speak in their own invented language. So I just didn't think that my kind of naturalism. Also, because there's been tiny little bits of contacts every now and then, but it's never really amounted to anything serious, because my style was so different. It's then been pointed out, so it wasn't on my radar. Not that, it just was, I thought that it was not the right time for me to go in and totally recreate myself in the image of Cirque du Soleil. So it was with just astonishing excitement that I was contacted by Amy Saunders. Some people might know her from Misbehave's game show. Contacted with her saying, would you be interested in going back to Vegas if it was short term? And I went, yes, I would. And after much back and forth, she put me in contact with one person who put me into contact with the next. And Cirque is a giant organization. And here I am, sitting here. It's all gone well, thanks to that initial introduction of Amy Saunders, and also from my excitement of it, because I know my good friend and fellow showman, Paul de Beck, who I last year was in about this time. I was in Adelaide doing the premiere season of Paul de Beck's show London Calling, cabaret extravaganza with a London theme. And this time it actually clashes. He is in Adelaide again with that show, and luckily he is absolutely slaying it there. They've been selling out, and that's totally awesome. And I am here, but in Las Vegas, and Paul de Beck is in Mad Apple in the show that I am currently in. And as it turns out, we're going to have some overlaps. We're going to be in the show at the same time, which is just absolutely astounding. Paul was one of those artists that I flew over. Actually, I didn't think there's a long story there. But anyway, he came and was part of the fundraiser that we did. Miranda, my wife, she and the love of my life, she organized so much of that thing, and Jody, and it was such a success. Just a few weeks before the pandemic, we raised an insane amount of money with the help of Voki and with the original Gazillionaire and Absinthe, and we made a lot of money for a tiny little Steiner school, a little Waldorf school here, and one of the acts that was in that show was Paul de Beck doing his shadow puppets, which now is happening nightly at Las Vegas, at Mad Apple in Las Vegas. So it's just this wonderful full circle. Those was the last things that happened before the pandemic came, and we all and Paul had moved here in part because I was here. We were having a great time, and then the pandemic came and we all lost our way a little bit. But it's great also that Amy Saunders, who now has Misbehave's game show, who she had for years, had her own show running here in Las Vegas, and she's now got that show on one cruise ship, and who knows, she's going to have an empire of this crazy game show. Because I met her first time in 1998 when she was working with the Kamikaze Freak Show. And for a short time, we sort of overlapped in being in that show. And she was swallowing swords and everything. So it's this wonderful full circle of that too. It's like we met then, and now she's just amazingly successful with her show, which is so, yeah, who would have thought when we were like doing shows in late night crazy freak show kind of thing, and both being so excited. And if I don't remember it wrong, she was the one that said, you gotta read Geek Love, Catherine Dunn's Geek Love, which is an extraordinary novel about freak show. For those who haven't read it, I'm just listening to it again now. Actually, I'm making this connection right as I'm doing that. I'm listening to that during the day here as an audio book. So anyway, here I am back. So all of those thoughts and all of that sort of wrapped together, and it come in full circle. It's like the day showbiz died. That was the thing that I wrote on as a sort of blog thing on the Carnival Cinema blog, and it was kind of the last thing that I wrote on that, and it did really well, and then that sort of ignited in me, okay, well, I should just record this and put it on and as a podcast, and that started this, and within a month or so of the first episode coming out, I had to leave Las Vegas, and it was like the end of an era and an end of a chapter, and the pandemic was going on, and we were served extra cups for our room in Los Angeles by a robot that came over, that gave us the cups, that drove up and came and delivered cups that we needed before flying out the next day to go back to Norway through the wasteland of what the airport was, and it was a crazy time. And now here I am, 4 years later. The pandemic has come and gone. My life has changed. My goals have changed. That my conversation with the world, my conversation with myself, my conversation with you has deepened to a point that I could not quite have imagined. I released the first season here with my essays that I'd written for the blog and for the Carnival Cinema blog, and then the second season that came out, where I decided to say no, even though I'd got a little bit of work as a teacher at the Steiner School, as a teacher's assistant at a Steiner School in Norway, and I decided to only work 3 days a week. Even there, I couldn't make enough money doing that to support the family anyway. But I still decided to only work on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so that and those other days, then I'd set those off, so then I had to write. And that became what made up the second season, which was my biggest deepening of my understanding of myself as a human being. And that, of course, is intricately woven with being a showman, being a performer. What does it mean? What does it mean, the grander, cosmic, existential thing to be a showman? And that's on my mind again now, because now I'm rewriting that book so that it'll make more sense. Because the last time and that season comes out as I am having the ideas, and as I'm structuring it as I go and whatever. And by the end, it was, it ended up being whatever it is, 35 episodes or something in that 40 episode season. So it's such a big document that I realized that after having written it and then rewritten it, and it took so long each time and so much time that maybe it wouldn't have been able to happen if it wasn't for the pandemic, and that I did have time, and that I decided to work less, and I put that, and now I'm rewriting that here now, sitting back in Las Vegas, and I'm working with an extraordinary company, and that's been amazing. Arriving here at Mad Apple and seeing this giant, being part of this giant organization, and got to meet Mark Porsey, which is the stage manager of the show. But oh my God, it's like he's the heart of this thing. I'd love to talk to him for this, and getting to experience him having a tapis rouge. Is that what it's called? Tapir rouge, which is like a meeting that we do once a week here, where in the way that he presents it, it is an emotional thing where people are talking about real stuff, sitting in the green room, and him leading it and talking about change in that first time it happened, which was was it on the first day, actually? No, it wasn't. It was a couple of days after. But I was blown away. Like, he was talking about change and how things are going to change and how we need to really appreciate what it is that we have, because in the moment, because things are in constant flux. And he's talking about how Mad Apple is, changing all the time. New people are coming in and the structure is changing and blah, blah, blah. And the show is doing great, but there's always change. And we always have that. It's like you want to hold on to one thing and you think you have the measure of something, but actually it is a whole lot more. And just being in there and, him pointing those things out in an actual scheduled plan thing, because of course that's how it is in a huge company. They got all these things going on and and it's a huge corporation, of course, but to see the amount of heart and the amount of love and the amount of care that people have for each other in here, and just to be there with having a costume department with these incredible people who, when I pull my suit out of my suitcase, and it's been a bit crumpled, and I go, should we steam it? And I go, oh, actually, it's got this little hole that's coming apart in the seams there on both sides of the hips there, because it's a suit that is not made to put your legs behind your head and balance on top of a tower of cans. So when I get sweaty and I put my legs behind, I extend the suit to the max. Maybe I've been letting myself go. After all, I am turning 48 years old. Anyway, what was the funny thing? I arrived, and then I had to do this because I'm now formally an employee of Cirque du Soleil, and then you have to do this exercise fitness test to see how fit are you, and it was like doing the most full-on leg day at the gym. My legs were jelly. Like, it started out with on this box. How tall could it be? Like 50 centimeters or something like that, half a meter thing. And just going, okay, and on the 90 beats per minute, just step on, bob onto the box here, up and down, and do that for 5 minutes. Luckily, I've been doing so much running and everything that it wasn't a problem. Like my heart rate didn't go above 116 when I was doing it, and I was fit, but man, my legs, they were so sore. And then I had to go on stage and do see if I can make my act work, because they had been closed for 10 days. They'd been dark, doing all sorts. I don't know what they've been doing, but so I had half an hour of stage time, and we had to validate, which is what we call it, to validate my confetti throw, that it's not going to impact negatively in a health and safety way or whatever on the performers that come immediately after me, and me falling off the stage, because the stage here is 46 inches something, which is like 1 meter and 11 centimeters. It's quite high for me to fall off, so they were worried about that, and then we had to validate that, and we went in, and what was this? I'm so sorry, I can't remember. Didier, the head coach over at I think he was also the coach over there, but he'd seen me before, so he already trusted me, and I fell off the stage. On the very first time, I actually knocked my head on the table where the audience is sitting, so that was a big loose in terms of showing that I'm a professional. But of course, I just had miscalculated, and it was the very first time I tried it, and then I did it again, nailed it, and then everyone was happy, and I did my full run through, and everything was validated. I am now currently in Cirque du Soleil in Mad Apple, performing 5 nights a week, 10 shows a week with an extraordinary company, and I am doing my own thing. I'm speaking English, telling my jokes, and I am in my costume that had its own peculiar way of emerging into what it is now, and the only real big difference from how you saw me in Spiegelworld's show or whatever is that now I wear a t-shirt. That's the biggest costume change. I wear a kind of tennis shirt as well. So I used to have no shirt on. So now I'm, and I have been doing that for the last 4 years. It's another thing that doing corporate events and stuff that has just afforded me, and I like the look even more. And here I am. So I thought that, and I don't have like a full face of makeup, and I don't wear a lycra suit and all of that, and I really feel like I have found a new home away from home. Like, it fits in so well, the way where I'm placed in the show. I go out and do the most crazy thing, and then this incredible hand balance that does a hand balancing act on top of the Empire State Building basically after me, and so it's me, chaotic, crazy, having no chance of even standing up on one leg, chaos, and then beauty and grace, and standing on one hand on top of stick on top of the Empire State Building on the center stage. So this has been my dispatches from the carnival's edge. I'm back in Las Vegas. Who would have thought? So will there be another birthday ramble next year? I didn't think there was going to be one this year, so maybe not. But if you're sticking around even next year, then you will find out. It's an absolute pleasure to have you listening and for me to be able to express myself to you. Thanks so much for listening, and let's talk again in a year. Or actually, let's talk again next week, because this has been on the off week. So I hope you are enjoying the showmanship and play, and that you'll take it in as deep as I have taken it in on myself when I have been writing it and thinking about it. Until next time, take care of yourself and those you love, and I hope to see you along the way.